Here's another episode for this series. Going solo this time. Now, Luke's currently busy at the moment. Something about him being a judge for something. Or maybe he went to Discworld. I don't know. I couldn't tell with that robe that he was wearing. Anyway, this is another video where I just ramble on a couple of stuff. Like Classic Sonic. Yeah, funny how a lot of people misunderstand my critiques with Classic Sonic and Forces. And immediately think that I'm a Classic Sonic hater. Yeah, I'm a classic Sonic hater because I clearly stated in my Sonic retrospective that I liked Sonic 2 and 3. And I already stated that I'm fine with the Genesis games, but I didn't grow up with them and have nothing against them. I'm just more of a modern Sonic fan. But of course, they never listen because that's the Sonic fan base. Say one tiny negative criticism on anything classic Sonic related, and you are forever blacklisted as a classic Sonic hater and accused for being a member of the ISIS terrorist organization or whatever kind of made-up excuses those Sonic forum websites would come up with. But enough about being bitter, cynical, and sarcastic. My critiques on classic Sonic and Forces was never about the character as a whole or its history. It's about how he was being used now. Not how he was like in the Genesis days or in the past. How he's being used now. So my main critique was how classic Sonic really has no story relevance and is not the best thing about it, especially with that whole retcon thing and everything. So yeah, why was he even in this game when he has nothing to contribute? Oh right, because Sega hasn't already advertised Sonic Mania a bazillion times already and just loves shoving that game down our throats. Blech. So in one of my previous episodes, Luke and I talked about if there was an overdose on classic Sonic and his nostalgia for the past decade. And it's sort of a mixed bag when you look more into it. Yeah, classic Sonic has been showing up a lot more, but technically not as much in the main game. Spin-off games, sure, but he's just an optional, unlockable character, and not part of the main game experience. But Sonic Forces always strikes a sore nerve with me, especially the way they handled him in the story, because in this game, his most important part of the story is doing nothing. Yeah, you could just easily replace all of his bits with either Tails or the Avatar character. Recently, I've been thinking that there seems to be another side of the coin, and that's more from a visual perspective. Now, the reason why I get so worked up over his appearance in Forces compared to anything else that he showed up in the past decade seems to be due to bad timing. So here's some more details on my personal perspective on the whole thing. So, after Colors, and from watching stuff from Lost World and eventually playing it, I really wasn't liking the direction the series was going for in terms of tone. Sure, I like Generations to an extent, but some of my issues with the series' current direction was still there. To me, Sonic always had a balance with gameplay and story. That way it wasn't, dark and gritty like one of the Batman Arkham games, and not too stupid like whatever Pontiff write for a Sonic game. And I already stated in the retrospective that the 2D segments worked better for Unleashed because there wasn't too many things blocking your way, it didn't happen way too often, and you could still keep the pace going. Unlike in Sonic Colors and Onwards, where the 2D segments happened way too many times, and they became very platform heavy, which really slows down the pace of the game. So I was expecting a more of a balance for the next game, a return for the more adventure-like Sonic that I enjoyed the most. Then the announcement for Sonic Boom came along with its reveal trailer, and then I was like, okay, so these modern Sonic games will continue with what they're doing, while Sonic Boom will be the return of the more action-adventure and balance stuff that I miss. But then we got more in-game dialogue from the game, and it was nothing what I was expecting. And apparently it's a glitchy mess, so just like Sonic 06, I missed out on it. Besides, I didn't have a Wii U at the time, and the 3DS version didn't interest me. So I figured maybe the TV show was what I was looking for, and I decided to give that a chance, and it only got worse. There's no adventure aspect with little to no action, the writing is even worse than Pontiac's usual guff, nothing is being properly established, and there's no consistency with its world and characters. Much like Colors, this was another case of false advertising. For the next few years, Sonic Boom was pretty much the new modern Sonic, seeing as how modern Sonic barely got anything and classic Sonic just kept pumping out them merchandise. Sure, Sonic's appearance in LEGO Dimensions and being able to experience a 3D Sonic game again was a nice distraction for a while, but that was only part of some other game, and not an actual Sonic game. Yeah, it was just not a good time being a modern Sonic fan. And if you want to know more about that, then I recommend watching this video. It goes a little more in-depth on what was going on around that time and how uncertain it was for modern Sonic's future. Then came Sonic Mania, and again, not what I was expecting. The overabundance of classic Sonic merchandise was one thing, But when you consider that and my personal experience with a lot of angry, obsessive classic Sonic fanboys, it just left a very bitter taste in my mouth. I was pretty harsh on the game when it was first revealed, being all, oh, why bother wasting $20 on a fan-made Sonic game when you can easily find them on the internet for free? I also remember I kept comparing this game to Street Fighter X Mega Man, a fan-made crossover game that got Capcom's seal of approval, even though back then it felt more like Capcom was desperately trying to win back their fans after canceling the long-anticipated Mega Man Legends 3 and a handful of other Mega Man titles. Then later we got news for an actual modern Sonic game, Sonic Forces, revealed trailers shown, and finally a return to a more action-adventure Sonic game, like the ones that I've grown up with, and oh, classic Sonic. Again. Bleh. Not only was that guy in both games, but they both came out a year late after the franchise's 25th anniversary, which left me very confused on which game was supposed to be the anniversary title. Trying to get through the release for Forces wasn't easy. All of the overhype and overpraise for Mania, some people reviewing the game flat out bashing and attacking modern Sonic fans, a Plus edition with new content, and an official web series that went on for like 52 episodes or whatever. All of that was really draining on me, considering the fact that Forces never got that kind of attention in America. It really is sad. While Sega was enjoying their time shoving Sonic Mania down our throats, Forces barely got any advertising and notice. It really did feel like Sega was just picking sides, only listening to all the classic Sonic fans, while the modern Sonic fans were just being ignored. So all I was left with was getting through Sonic Forces and then calling it quits on the future of Sonic games, because I had enough at that point. I had at least one sliver of hope that Forces would be at least decent to end on, but it wasn't. Again, with the whole 2D modern Sonic game falsely advertised as a 3D Sonic game, terrible writing, stages that were too short and too easy, a new villain that was about as forgetful as the Deadly Six, some very weak attempts at DLC, and retcons being established out of nowhere. Sure, there were comics to tie in with the game, but the stories just added even more confusion and contradiction when you piece them all together. Oh yeah, then there was that Sonic Forces speed battle on mobile phones, which is just an online version of Sonic Dash featuring a bunch of characters who weren't even in Forces. That was cheap, and not in a good way. And that's when I decided to give up on the future of Sonic games. If they couldn't get it right in Forces, they'll never get it right. They'll just continue on with more false advertising while pandering only to nostalgia and memes. All I wanted was balance, something that I've been stressing about for years, and in this video obviously, but it won't happen, because it'll never happen. And that's why I am done dealing with the new upcoming Sonic games. Even if they decide to actually make a real 3D Sonic game, or some kind of Sonic Adventure remastering thing that people have been trying to hype up for, I'm not playing it. It's too late for me. And I'm sure there'll be people in the comments saying, oh, come on, give this new game a chance. Well, sorry, I've given Sega plenty of chances, and they kept fucking it up, so no thanks. Well, at least there's IDW Sonic. Funny how that my only source of ongoing Sonic entertainment was, at first I had no interest with reading the stuff. And that was another case of bad timing, because the announcement came out right after Archie Sonic announced its cancellation. And the other reason is that, when you look back at IDW's other comic books based off of video games, they don't last long. But then they started to show more info on the comics, like new characters, some panels of some action happening, and getting people who actually know and care about the franchise. Then I became a lot more interested, and I was liking what I saw and heard. And that's exactly what I got when the comics finally came out. Unlike what happened with Sonic Boom and its false advertising and lack of identity and interest. And wouldn't you know it, they managed to surpass IDW's curse of short-lived video game comics, seeing as how, as of now, they're close to issue 20. I don't expect it to last longer than Archie Sonic, but I hope it'll have a good run. And I'm already planning to see the Sonic movie when it eventually comes out, because unlike Sega constantly lying to me with their advertisements, I know what to expect from this movie. Just another movie based on a video game series, and it turns out to be bad. Because all movies based off of video games are forever cursed to be bad for some reason. Oh yeah, the quick update. I didn't bother watching that OKKO and Sonic crossover episode. Because one, I have no idea what OKKO is. I only saw a small snippet of the show. And two, I'm still pretty bitter and cynical from the last time Sonic was on television. And from what I've been hearing, this crossover episode sounds like another case of pandering to nostalgia, so No thanks. Shit, at least IDW Sonic is better than the whole classic Sonic retcon. Bleh. Personally, between generations and forces, 6 years isn't long enough to take something that was already established, then suddenly retconning it, making the previous installment irrelevant. I even watched through Mania's cutscenes out of research to see if there was any kind of clarity in that game that it takes place in an alternate universe. But there isn't. And to back up more of that whole classic Sonic's pointless enforcers, the true ending in Mania has Sonic getting sucked into some kind of portal. Then at the beginning of Encore mode, he gets shot out of that same portal and has a proper ending. Yeah, just have the main game, and that other mode be the part 2 of the game. You know, like in Super Mario Brothers. You play through the game, you beat it, you unlock the second quest with some changes to the difficulty, you beat that, and that's the end. But no, instead, his appearance in Forces is about as pointless as that time the Archie Sonic versions of Shadow and Metal Sonic did a crossover with the Sonic X universe, where nothing important happened there. Even so, I've seen some comments theorizing that Generations is still relevant, and that there was some kind of a timeline split after the events of that game. So Modern Sonic continued on after that, and Classic Sonic led into Mania. Okay, it sounds interesting, but still confusing at the same time, cause does that mean that Modern Sonic's past adventures before Sonic Adventure have been wiped from his memory? And that the classic Sonic Genesis game's its own universe now, and that Sonic Adventure and onwards is its own thing? That seems to be the implications. Well, if that's the case, then why do we have Green Hill and Chemical Planet Modern Sonic's new timeline? Shouldn't that be exclusive to this new Neo-Classic Sonic timeline? Because how can Modern Sonic automatically know and say that he's been there before when he doesn't have any memories of actually being there in the past, because these two zones never existed in the new established timeline and only exist in the new Neo-Classic Sonic timeline, and instead they decided to just throw him into this new Modern Sonic timeline out of nowhere just for the sake out of nostalgia? This is too confusing. In fact, this is something that I've been noticing with the writing in Sonic games from Colors and onwards. You know how they say about certain things happening and you need to show it and not just tell it? Well, Sega seems to prefer the exact opposite, where they just explain what's going on, but don't provide any visuals to give those words much of an impact. A good example of this is, again, Sonic Forces. They make a big deal about Robotnik taking over almost the entire world, but they don't show the process. We don't get to see him constructing new factories. We don't see how this has impacted the lives of the civilians. We don't get to see him destroying buildings to expand his Eggman empire. Heck, Episode Shadow is supposed to take place before the takeover, and the first stage he's in is in a town that was destroyed during the big takeover. Sure, the whole say it don't show it can work sometimes when it's in like horror movies and whatnot, but Sonic is not a horror franchise. It's one thing to have some mystery that's never fully explained for certain characters or items, but nowadays, the entire Sonic franchise has become nothing but vague descriptions. Even if Sega tries to explain things, especially if it's coming from Takashi Iizuka or Aaron Weber, they'll just immediately dismiss it or come up with a weak excuse that can easily be contradicted. To me, with Sonic, it's always been about action and adventure, fighting robots, exploring worlds and locations, have some serious moments, but also have some funny moments to balance each other out. Or at least that's what the Sonic games used to be anyway. Sure, the games still have the whole Sonic punching robots and a few other things, but it just doesn't have the heart and soul anymore. Nowadays, it's all about nostalgia pandering and memes, because apparently Sega thinks that's the only thing that the Sonic fanbase cares about these days. And that's just sad. Well, I think that's enough rambling for this video. Jeez, I was trying to make it a short video, but then I just kept adding more and more and more to the script. Oh well, it ain't gonna stop all the false accusations anyway, because that's the Sonic fanbase. And I just wanted to get this out of the way. And to be honest, it's been a real struggle trying to keep this series going. Mostly due to my bitter and cynical side constantly getting in the way with writing these scripts, and it just comes off where I sound like an angry asshole, which then resolves into many, many rewrites of the script, which also leads into a lot of having a lack of interest in making this stuff. I do have some episodes planned, I just don't have enough steam to actually work on them. So, will I be able to continue this series for a while, or will it end up like Beta Collection? Who knows?